Afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you guys for, or good evening at this point. Thank you guys for joining us here. Welcome to Free Game. My name is David Butler. I'm the Director of Community Initiatives at the Whitaker Group. We're super excited about tonight's topic, the art of storytelling. We'll go ahead and get straight to it with the intros. Big J, how you living, man?
What's good with you, bro? James Whitner, owner, founder of the Whitaker Group. I ain't gonna steal Aria's thunder. I'll let you get everybody introduced yet. I'm excited to get into it though.
Nah, for sure. We're gonna go ahead and have our guest of honor, the maestro for this evening, Miss Aria Hughes. Allow you to introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, everyone. My name's Aria. I am the Deputy Style Editor at Complex. So I overlook all the fashion and style coverage on Complex. I have a background in journalism, and that's been my field of work for like the past 15 years. So yes, I'm well-versed in storytelling, and I have lots of opinions about it. And James has heard some of these opinions, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Nah, for sure, for sure. Jay, you want to kick it off, or you want me to roll into it?
No, man. Listen, let's get into it. I think for me, especially working in retail, and you know, things are always in the press, and you got to kind of like watch what you say at times, right? And I've learned to just not give comment in most cases, right? And then out of the woodwork, I meet Aria. You know, I'm not going to talk about the press people that I don't trust. Let's just keep it about the ones that I do, right? And you get hit by this voice, and it's like, yo, let's just jump on the phone, and you start talking to this person, and you kind of forget that you're talking to like a journalist. And I'm like, yo, this is like an everyday like sister, like that I'm used to connecting with and talking to. And then, you know, by the end of the conversation, you realize like, oh shit, like we had a whole conversation. I wonder what's going to come out of it. And then with Aria, it's like nothing. Like you don't hear anything, right? You don't hear anything. And then like maybe like that happens like 4 or 5, maybe 10, 12 times. And then out of the clear blue, you see a story pop up. And it's never about the thing that you think. It's like always about something different. So I've always wondered like what's your process? Like, cause I felt like she's just tinkering with me, like really getting a chance to understand like who I am, like vetting me out to make sure that she actually believes this guy that, you know, I guess I say I am. So what's your process? How do you get to it? How do you like start wrapping your mind around what do you want to talk about and why? And like, you know, like I trust you, but why? Like, how did you become this way?
So yeah, when I've always had an interest in obviously Black things, Black culture. But I really didn't get a chance to write about it until a little bit later in my career when I was at WWD. And so I remember once I was at this symposium at the Fashion Institute of Technology, and it was all about like Black designers. Dapper Dan was there. This was before the whole Gucci thing happened. And long story short, I kept hearing people cite WWD as like source material. Like in 1970, WWD wrote this. And I was like, oh shit. So like the things that I write are going to be source material at some point. And I remember there was a point in time where I was like, do I want to be the Black girl who's only writing about Black things? Like, is that going to box me in? But then when I looked around at the office at WWD and I was like the only Black girl on staff. And then when I thought about that symposium, I was like, no, I feel a responsibility to cover these things and these topics. And like the through line for a lot of what I do is about ownership and giving credit where credit's due, and telling people stories who people don't pay attention to, but they're incredibly influential. So that's a through line of what I do. In terms of the interview process, I do a lot of prep. With you, I don't prep because we know each other at this point. We just speak off the cuff, but I do a lot of prep. So I feel like I try to understand what makes a person tick, what they can offer to the story.
That part, the what makes the person tick part. That's what you was doing to me. Like asking probing questions to fill me out, to see what makes me tick. But we sit on the other side of the stories, right? Like you've written some incredible pieces, like like incredibly insightful pieces. I get a ton of. It's always dope to me when I get hit by people when they send me an article and was like, "Yo, this is dope as hell." And then at least several times it's been you that's been the writer. So that's like, it's a homie. You're like, I like to consider you a friend at this point because it's been so long.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, even some of those big, like, what was the piece that you done? Oh God, it was super long because I remember
Black
sitting.
ownership. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yes, the piece on Black ownership.
Yeah.
That piece had to take you forever to write because it took me forever to read, and I read it twice. Right, but like for pieces like that are so in depth, like how do you get there? Like that, because you had to retell the story of our culture, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you like program yourself to get there?
I try to speak to as many people as possible. I try to make sure that I'm considering everyone's perspective. I think a lot of the times in media, particularly within streetwear, like people want to talk to the buzzy designer who's hot right now. But I try to speak to people who were here before them. So for that story, of course, I had to speak to people like the founders of Cross Colors and April Walker and Carl Kanai. And then I spoke to you, and then I spoke to like Joe Fresh Goods. And with that story, like I did reporting, and then I had my team members do reporting. And I really do report like I'm about to write a book, to be honest. And because I just think it makes the story better. It offers as much context and details as I can. And I don't ever want to be the one who gets the tweet where someone's like, why didn't you include this person or whatever? So I try to cover the story as fully as I can. And in order to do that, I speak to tons of people, and I usually speak to them for at least an hour, and go through what we talked about in the transcriptions and try to pull from that what I think makes sense for the story, so I can have like a really full, complete picture.
So with all that being the case, right? What I hear you saying is like you got to vet it out to make sure that you're quotable at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the balance, how come we see so much media fuckery, right? Right? Like because like yo, all the news aren't that it's not those kind of stories, right? Like I feel like we only get a really good story once a week. We're lucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's more. I feel like there's more about just, like you said, the poppy designer or who's
Mm-hmm.
Kanye's next girl, or if
Mm-hmm.
somebody smacks somebody at a party. I feel like we get a whole bunch of that and not enough of that. Do you think there's a responsibility to do more good journalism and less just filling the world with, whatever the rest of the content is, or just filling the world with space and content, right?
I think so. But I speak from a very privileged position because I don't have to play those games at Complex. I know that there's some people who just have to play that game where they work. And I'm not saying that we all play that game in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reason is because I'm just going to be honest, media is grasping at straws. I think the media industry, for one, like people have been conditioned to, like they read headlines. So in knowing that, people try to make the headline as salacious as possible. I mean, even me at this point, I get most of my news from IG. I get most of my news from the shade room. And like, yeah, it's like you're reading the headlines. And when you are like going through a scroll or a timeline of just stuff after stuff after stuff after stuff, people feel compelled to write the most salacious thing they can. So that's like the biggest challenge for my job, is to present informative, insightful stories that are still like entertaining, and that still can draw the reader in some way. And it's not easy. Like I see what people read on Complex, and that's what they care about. They care about who Kanye's dating. And I mean, I guess I do too. I'm not gonna act like I don't. Like I'm all about pop culture and everything else. But yeah. And then also media I feel like it's gotten to the point where it's trying to cater to everyone. So when you're trying to cater to everyone, I think you lose focus and you start to talk about whatever the lowest hanging fruit that's going to get you the most clicks. And that's just an issue. And yeah, that's just is what it is.
Well, is it a fight when you're trying to get like new people out to break through, right? Because a lot of youngins are on free game and they come for the session information, and some of them are in our industry and want to break through, right? So you feel like, and you said it earlier, like you're trying to not cover the new designer or the in-trend person. I'm sorry, the in-trend people. You want to try to cover new people. Do you get a lot of pushback when you're trying to like break something new that may be like kind of above people's heads?
So, I mean, at Complex, we're supposed to be ahead of the curve, to be honest. But I do think it's starting to get to a point where we're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't cover this person just yet. Maybe we should cover them when they have a little bit more of a buzz, because maybe it'll be advantageous in terms of traffic. I'll be honest, I can pretty much write what I want to write. Like, I run the section, my editors trust me, thankfully. But I mean, I guess my advice for, say, a younger, newer writer who's on staff at a publication and they're having an issue writing about what they want to write. For one, I think prove that you can do all types of good work, even if it's like the BS news story that you don't really want to do. Like, prove that you can do that. Build trust with your senior editors. Think about like what makes your senior editors tick. Like at WWD, do they care about mergers and acquisitions? Figure out how you can relate your interests, streetwear, to mergers and acquisitions. Like, are there any, like, keep your nose to that beat. And then I think after time, hopefully, if you work for a decent editor, they'll allow you to tell the stories that you want to tell. And if they don't, guess what? We have the internet. Anybody can tell a story. Like, we were talking about my IG stories. I tell stories over that all day. They're not on Complex, and then it could be something more formal. Like, there's platforms like Medium. Look, there's so many ways that you can tell stories now that don't rely on big media platforms.
So with that being said, what were some of the things, and you may have answered the question already that I'm about to answer, like how did you get your first editors to trust you? Because I mean, it was WWD, then Complex, right?
Yeah. So prior to WWD, I was at this publication called WGSN, which is like a trend forecasting service. And that was me covering a bunch of retail, not a lot of culture. So I was happy when I got to WWD that I had a chance to cover culture. And I just remember when I came in, I just said, I'm going to spend this, this first 6 months to a year, like just doing what they asked me to do and doing it really well. Like, everything that they asked me to do, I'll say yes to, and I'm gonna do it really well. Even if I'm not interested in the topic, I'm gonna act like I'm interested in the topic. So I just prove that I can do good work. And then like, you just start pitching, and just saying like, this is important. This is why it's important. Speak with authority. I think, the way I communicate and the way I talk to my editors, obviously it's very respectful. But I speak with authority and I know what I'm talking about. So I know that this is a story that merits coverage. And if you don't let me cover it, you're probably a fool. I don't speak like that. But that's like the tone I try to offer. Like, are you serious? Of course you need to be covering this. I mean, so I think for one, believe in your instincts of what is a good story and what needs to happen. And then if you're at a place where you keep running into a wall, leave. Like, if you're at a place where an editor doesn't trust your instinct, especially at this point, post 2020, leave, figure out a way to, or stay there and figure out a way to tell the stories on your own. There's people who have newsletters. There's people who have, websites, people are like causing a stir with just like tweet threads, telling stories. Like, the possibilities are really endless for storytelling, and they're not like relegated to big publications.
Precious just asked a dope question in the comments. She said, how do you balance your bias? How do you balance your bias within your work? That's a dope question. Because my bias would show like hell.
I'm a pragmatic person, so I try to approach things we all have biases, but I really try to listen. I think listening to your sources is the best way to prevent bias. Listen, and don't listen for what you want to hear. Like, listen to what they're actually saying. I've seen a lot of young reporters who like want to lead sources down this path so they can tell them the story that they want to tell them. But if they don't feel that way, they don't feel that way. So listen. I think also like be a person of the world, listen to all types of perspectives. If you're a writer or if you're a person, period, you should be curious about where different people come from. I think research also allows me to be not biased and just like looking at cold hard numbers and facts. And yeah, getting multiple perspectives in your story allows you to be not biased. But yeah, it's this whole thing where they're like, journalists are supposed to be completely, objective. It's just not, it's not realistic. We all have our own biases. We all grew up certain ways. Obviously, I'm a Black girl, so I think about things through a specific lens. But yeah, it's just like, just listen and be fair and respectful. Yeah, treat people with care. It is scary speaking to a journalist because you don't know what the person's going to do with your words.
Yes.
You don't know, what they're trying to achieve, what they're trying to do. And I've always tried to not be like a gotcha journalist. Like, I'm always pretty clear with the intent of my story, what I'm trying to do, and why I'm talking to you. And just like treating people how you want to be treated, period. Yeah.
No, I remember one of the key things when I knew I was starting to get super comfortable with you. I think I was saying something. You was like, "Yo, say what you saying. Everything's off the record until I tell you it's on the record." That was the first time somebody in media had ever said that to me.
Yeah.
Because I'd always walked into the conversations thinking that everything that I said was on the record, and I was like waiting for them to burn me at some point. And honestly, I still, outside of you, I focus that way. I probably, except for you and probably Bima. Or the only two that I think about when I could just talk and know that I'm not going to get burnt by something that I said, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I have no interest in burning anybody. Like, what do we get out of that? Like you get it messes. I see it all the time though. Like, it messes up your network, it messes up your relationships. Like what are we really trying to do? Like, at the end of the day, we're trying to tell an honest story about, that combines multiple perspectives, and it shouldn't be a huge surprise to the source when it comes out. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Dave, I'm hogging the ball some, Dave. You want to jump? I came in hot on this one. I still got more. I could keep hogging it if you want me to, but I know we got to have some free game structure.
No, for sure. But I think that's always good to come in and start with that context for people to really understand who our guests are. So that's a really good intro. Arya, we appreciate all that, everything that you just dropped in those first couple of questions, that dialogue with James. But for those who are looking to maybe storytell across different mediums, which was kind of part of like what our pre-conversation was. My question was, why is storytelling so important and so vital while creating in like our contemporary settings that we're in right now?
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about this a little bit. Everybody is a storyteller. Like, I see it with James and what you do. And like, with the amount of noise that is happening, I think stories are very compelling. So it behooves everybody to tell a story in an engaging way. And you do it naturally with like what you post on IG. You're telling a story about yourself. You do it naturally with like what you might choose to tweet. We're all storytellers, but why I think it's so important across all platforms is because like, how else are you gonna get people to pay attention? Like I was thinking about this with something, I won't say what it is, but like there's something that's going on that people want buy-in. And I'm like, well, what does it mean to people? Like, why should they care? And so like the onus is on you to tell people why they should care. And usually you can do that through really human stories. So yeah, it's like, if you're not telling a story, what are you doing?
Well, and then something else I think about storytelling too is, and here I go with cultural bias. I can't fucking opportunity, right? Sorry. But even how our culture gets shifted, right? Because largely we don't always get a chance to narrate our stories the way they need to come out, right? And people get a chance to pull out of people's stories, what they want or what they find entertaining or what they think the world what the world will bite onto. So largely, I think we end up as people admiring people not for substantive reasons. We end up admiring them for some bullshit. Is there I'm about to go back to responsibility and press, right?
Yeah, we talking about other mediums, James. Other mediums.
Yeah, my fault. I told you. You know, I'm a topic shifter, man. I'm a mute again. I'm sorry. You know where I was about to go. You know where I'm about to go. Go ahead, man. Let's go. Topics of medium. All right, we get there. We'll get back to where I was going later. But you knew where I was going.
But no, okay. So, were there any prior to you getting into journalism, so we can keep James off of journalism?
Yeah.
Were there any other mediums that you told stories in prior to getting into journalism, maybe in growing up or in developing, or prior to landing in the field you're in now?
That's a good question, because I'm kind of old, so I wasn't in when I was. Sorry, James, but when I was in like college, we had Facebook, but we didn't have IG. But I've always been like, I was journalism girl. So in middle school, I was on the broadcast club. In high school, I was on the newspaper and the yearbook. So I've just always been telling stories in that way. But that's a really good question. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I didn't have social media when I was younger. So the only stories I told were through like these old distribution channels, a newspaper.
Hey, look, you wasn't telling those stories on MySpace. You wasn't out here, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, no.
Friendster, high five.
That's funny. No, I'm such an observer. I spent a lot of time on MySpace observing all the cool kids in New York. You know, like.
Nah, I hear that.
I remember, yeah, that was an observer mostly.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from the DMV area. So I'm from Northern Virginia. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So what are your thoughts, we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but you kind of went into your process of it, but in getting to the fact of like the importance of telling stories that haven't been told. And I mean, when you look at Black culture, there are millions of stories that haven't been told, right? Especially when we talk about our time here in America. Mm-hmm. Everybody's been talking about all of the, all of your Black Wall Streets and Black riot incidents. Mm-hmm. that have happened that have largely gone undocumented, and stories told around that. A lot of those are coming to light. So just speak a little bit towards the value of, telling untold stories and kind of what that's looked like for you in other parts of your career.
Oh my gosh. It's so important. And I don't know why I've always, it's just something that, I remember at WWD, I wrote a profile on Slick Rick. And people probably say that's really random. And it kind of was, but I was like, he's like the blueprint. Like, how can we not honor him? How can I not write about him? How can I not talk about how significant he is to culture and in fashion? I mean, I think, people knew Slick Rick as or know him as this lyricist storyteller, but it's he's contributed so much to the way in which people still dress today. And it's just always been, I've always dug deep into Black culture. And I think that is what has led me to coming across certain names that I end up telling stories about. For instance, I did a story and everybody was like, oh my gosh. So Little Kim's hairstylist, her name is Dion. And I kept coming across her name in credits. And if you go on Google Books, they have every issue of Vibe, which is just fun to go through. But I kept seeing her name in credits and I was like, where is she? What's she up to? What's she doing? And I did end up getting in touch with her, but nobody was thinking about her. And then you have this, and it helps you, as a writer, you're nobody was thinking about her. She has this really compelling story. She was highly influential. She did Little Kim's hair, what more do you need to say? But people weren't thinking about her. And I don't, yeah, it's I'm just always the type of person, if I see an image that I love, if I see an outfit that I love, however old it is, I'm like, okay, where are the credits so I can know who did this, so I can know if I need to know more about them and tell their story. So that's how I do it. But sometimes I'm surprised that people haven't gotten to a person before I do. Like, I'm like, nobody's thought to cover this person. Nobody's thought. And I have a long list of people I still want to cover. But it's incredibly important. It's so important. And I don't know if anybody, I don't know who's on this because I'm like ignoring the number, ignoring the names. But if anybody like is on staff now or wants to be on staff, like challenge yourself to tell a story that hasn't been told. And it doesn't take a lot of effort, to be honest, to like just takes a little bit of digging and curiosity.
It's
So
crazy. Go for it, Jay.
Who you said there's a list. If it's like you're not supposed to give up your secrets of who you want to cover that you haven't, but who top two?
I mean, it's sad. There was actually a stylist, Derek Kahn, that I wanted to cover and he passed. And that made me like all the more like, damn, like it gave me a sense of urgency. I mean, everybody knows who he is. At this point, I give out all my ideas because quite frankly, I don't have time to write everything I want to write. But like everyone knows who styled Aaliyah, Derek Lee, but he doesn't have like a definitive story. So we're in talks currently. And who else? There's so many people. There's a makeup artist who worked with Kim a lot. And I always want to get together like Misa, the makeup artist, and the hairstylist and have them talk and do a story about that, because I just feel like their stories haven't been documented properly of them working together as this like trifecta. There's a photographer, and I'm gonna write this story. His name is Eric Johnson, but he was the photographer who shot the cover of Vibe with Biggie and Faith. And I've already done the interview. I did the interview a long time ago, but I need to write the profile. I'm excited to write that because he had a lot of really great stories. There's so many people, but they're kind of like top of mind right now.
No, Dave, my fault. I interrupted you. No,
You
I was just really curious because it also just hearing how your man ticks.
Oh, and there's this woman who she doesn't want to talk. I've tried to talk to her. I like have stalked her, and because I'm really bad with names and it makes me come across as I'm uninformed, but I'm not. But she helped start Supreme with James Jebbia, Marianne Fusco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they were together at the time, but she had a lot to do with like how Supreme was curated. And I really want to speak with her, but every time I would like, she sells vintage now. So I would see her at vintage fairs and be like, would you want to talk? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay. And there's someone else that is escaping me, but there's so many people that I want to talk. Oh, Hype Williams. I'm dying to interview Hype Williams. He don't want to talk though. He wants to get paid. But yeah, but I'm dying to speak to him. Like he's so like instrumental and kind of like informing what like hip hop aesthetics look like. And I've been in talks with his publicist, but
well,
yeah.
what's your thoughts on that paid and unpaid? Like what's your thinking around that?
What you mean? I'm a journalist. I don't pay nobody. I don't pay anybody to speak. But I mean, I guess at Complex, like for a while, I was trying to figure out like how can we make this a branded opportunity with Hype, so he's able to get something paid out of it, and I'm able to get an interview. But it's not easy to like make that happen.
No, I can imagine that one. Go ahead, Dave. I interrupted you. My fault.
No, you good. I was just gonna say, like, it's interesting because in an era where there is so much information, you would think more people, to Arya's earlier comments, would look under the hood to some of the things that are so iconic to us and see, who's kind of responsible and who was behind the machine, especially in a time where you look at that early 2000s era, there were a lot of people involved in making an artist, right? Like the industry was so vast and it was so many people working behind the scenes. So it's interesting to your point that these people who are kind of living these lives and probably doing something different now, or, working in a different industry, or even working in the same industry, doing the same thing behind the scenes, aren't getting as much coverage. I do want to take a little bit of time to pivot and make sure that we're still covering some other mediums to help out some other folks that might be in the audience. So Jay, I'm gonna toss this question to you. Because obviously we do a lot of storytelling through product at work. So I'm interested in how you identify the important stories, or how do you identify the value in the stories you want to tell when we're looking at product collaborations, et cetera? Obviously, we coming off of the AJ3, or kind of in the midst of AJ3 with the Raised by Women story and things like that. So yeah, just wanted to toss that to you and have you talk a little bit about that. Obviously, I know the answer, and I work with Jerry Day, but for the folks who are here, as we're looking at product and collaborations and things like that, what are your thoughts on, communicating that value to brand partners and why these stories are important and all that kind of stuff?
Man, for me, I think I just said it recently, and I'll say it again. Our real stories don't get told. Like all this cheesy shit that people talk about with swooshes and designs, and they was inspired by whatever. Gone are the days of just talking about different places that, like, I'm inspired by the playground and the projects, and we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the things that really pushed us to get here. Like, we talk a lot about the struggle, but like through that struggle, like, we learned to have fun, and there was joy in poverty, and there's joy in suffering. So for me, it's about really trying to elevate our stories as like Black cultures. It's 40 some million of us in America at this point. So for the rest of my time in this industry, that's all I got to talk about. So if somebody don't want to talk about that, don't talk to me. Like, I'm at a place now where we don't get our just due. Not the real ones anyway, the ones who really come from the bottom, who really had to struggle up. And no disrespect to nobody who had two parents, because that's the way it should be, right? But like, our stories, all the stories need to be told. So for me, it's about looking at what's happening in our world and what's authentic to us, and what do we have what stories do we have an authentic voice in telling?
Don't you think it's getting better though, James?
Yeah.
Like, I think about like Joe Fresh Goods, and then I just saw like what Casey Lynch did with New Balance.
Yo, Aria, but you got something to do with that, which is why I was so happy to talk to you. Like that started with, you was interested in, when you hit me first, wasn't nobody in media talking about me or to me, if that makes sense, right? Like that's why I could poke on you about, you understand how important the stories are, like your presence in media and other people, dope PR people's presence in media, and the fact that there's like this dope group of like Black men and women PR people who understand the importance of getting our stories out there and who support us, right? Like, so yes, 100%. I think we're getting comfortable at being together and understanding that we need to support each other. And that means just pushing opportunities each other's way and making sure that we tell our stories. I think that the community is getting stronger.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think so. Like, I just saw the Casey Lynch, he's, like I said, brand names escape me, but Bricks and Woods, I believe. Anyways, I just saw his video. I thought it was so beautiful. It was him like planting a New Balance box in like a backyard with this older Black man, and just hearing the older Black man's voice. And then it like grew into this tree of sneakers. And it was just so like fantastical, but so Black. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And you don't really always, even though sneaker culture is grounded in Black culture, you don't see that often. Same with Joe and like the 7-Eleven stuff. Joe is a great storyteller.
Joe's like, dope.
Ooh.
And people think Joe just came out of nowhere. Joe been dope.
Yeah, no, he's such a good storyteller. Like, when with his 7-Eleven release, he like had this copy that said like, and don't forget to bring my change back. And who doesn't relate to that? When you're Black and they give you the money and you got to bring the change back, and just like seeing those little endearing signals on product, like, it just I get excited about it. So yeah, I think it's getting better, but yeah, there's always room for improvement.
No, I mean, listen, I think I said it before. I don't want the world to be all of our stories, right? We just need space to be able to tell our stories and get them out there. And to your point, it is getting better, because now we're being given some space to be able to get it out. But it's still, I'm not going to jump out there and say it's enough yet. And I don't know if everyone still is as comfortable as they should be talking about everything that they should, if that makes sense.
People are asking good questions. I'm trying not to like be distracted.
Oh yeah, but Dave, you want to jump in again? Because some of them I caught some earlier too. So I want to go into Q&A so fast. But
Oh, sorry. Am I messing up the flow? Sorry.
No.
Good.
The questions was dope. No, the questions was dope.
If you saw one that stood out to you specifically,
someone
feel free to call it out.
And I don't know why I'm like excited to answer this. I'm not excited, but it's a good question. They said, "What is your stance on non-persons of color telling?" Tamika Hall asked this question. It's
Unlock her, Dave.
Yeah, I got you.
Let's let her come in live.
Yep.
The silence is deafening.
There she is.
Hey, I recently actually wrote a hi.
I didn't know her by name. I know you by face. Yes, hi, how are you?
I know my government is like a secret. Everyone knows my social media moniker, and I kind of like it that way. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. But I actually just ran into this problem as I was writing a book. And this was the pull and tug for me. So I know you probably get faced with this thing, and like, what's your stance on that? Do you really feel like non-persons of color can capture our culture and tell our stories accurately, or do you feel like they missed the mark? I want to say what I want to say, but I'm gonna let you go first.
Most of the times they miss the mark, but that's not to say that it's not possible to write about Black culture with a level of reverence and accuracy if you're not Black. I just think you have to be very invested in it and honor it, to be quite frank. Like, there's a lot of the times where I see certain publications, I'm not going to name it, but it's a men's publication, and a lot of their profiles about young Black rappers are written by white men. And you just see like little things that are bothersome. Like, one of them wrote about your story, James, and they wrote a sentence that annoyed the hell out of me. And it was like, it was about your beautiful hotel hospitality space in DC. And I guess you had Jolly Ranchers in the room. And they said something about the room has Jolly Ranchers, you know, which rappers use to make lean. And I'm like, I read that and I was just like,
I know the exact story you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to put anybody on blast, but it is what it is. Like, yeah, like where there's just certain things that you see that just make you kind of cringe. And I think that, but even before 2020, I was thinking about this. Like, I remember seeing, I was just like, why are all of our like top A-list actors, actresses, celebrities, or whatever, all of them are for New York Magazine, for the Times, for whatever, all of them are written about through a white gaze. Like, I don't think Kanye West has one profile written by a Black person. And that, so do I think they can tell the stories? Yes. Do I think some people need to pass the baton and let young Black people tell these stories? Yes. That's how I feel about it. And yeah, I just see, and if you're biased about something, and if you see Jolly Ranchers in a Black owned business and your first thing is to think, oh, they're using these to make lean, maybe you shouldn't be covering the topic.
Big facts.
Now I'm getting honest.
No. This is the aria that I love.
And now I'm getting spicy. But it just is what it is. Yeah, like, yeah. But that's it.
Let's keep these questions. Let's keep these questions coming. I like feisty aria.
Thank you for answering.
Little Kim has a book coming out, and it's not written by a Black woman. And that bothers the hell out of me. And I'm sure that this woman is a great writer, but why? What? So yeah, but okay, we can move on.
Yo, Tamika, thank you for the great question. That was a great question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you, guys.
Sure thing. We're gonna flow into Destiny next.
Keep feisty aria going, man. Keep feisty aria going. Don't let her go away.
Yeah. Destiny, we coming your way. I'm gonna get you to unmute.
Hey, I just wanted to know, like, how do you like build trust with your sources, because I know sometimes when you're writing a certain stories, you don't have much time to like build that trust. But if you want to tell somebody's story right, then they have to be comfortable. So like how do you like make that happen?
That's a great question. And you have a beautiful smile. I love your gap. My mom has a gap, so I have this thing for gaps. Anyways, I you have to do a lot of research on the source. Like, yeah, you have to do a lot of research on the source because most people aren't doing a lot of research on the source, and a lot of journalists are asking the same tired questions all the time. And you have to treat the source like they're worthy of being researched, so you're able to ask them informed questions that they actually want to speak about. Like when Naomi Osaka said, "I'm done doing interviews," I'm like, I don't blame her. People ask these women the same, and men, whoever. I see it on the red carpet. Like we ask these people the same 5 questions. But yes, so how you build trust is by researching your source really well. So when you have time to speak to them, you're asking them the most relevant and smart questions. Yeah. You're welcome.
Cool. I'm gonna throw it to Andreas. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. But they had a very good question about collaboration and storytelling across mediums and like complementing media.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, so I'm a photographer, and I'm just curious on like you guys are saying a lot of editorial and writing things such as that. But what do you guys look for in photographers when you're trying to create that like media or image to kind of help complement your story and complete it?
Yeah, I think like, and James can speak to this too, because y'all have such beautiful visuals. But I think like, a point of view, like now a lot of people, we want photographers who have a point of view and who have a distinct style, and who we feel is going to highlight the subject in a way or through a lens that makes sense. So like there's this photographer, I'm like telling too much because I don't see people and I'm not telling too much, but there's this photographer named Mark Clennon, who he had that really beautiful image of the young Black gentleman in front of the Trump towers with his fist raised. But I'm using him as an example because he comes to mind. There's so many photographers I can talk about, but he has a point of view, like, and he has a specific eye. I think about this female photographer, Adrienne Raquel. She has a really specific point of view, and she shoots all women, but also Black women through this like really beautiful, glossy lens. So I think it's really about honing in on like your eye, your point of view, your voice. So when we have a subject, we say, "Oh, what's your name?" Andres.
Andreas.
Andreas. You say, "Oh, Andreas makes sense for this," And I'll be honest, you're at an advantage because a lot of talent are coming in and saying, "We want a Black photographer," So Black creatives should definitely use that as leverage now. But have a popping Instagram account with a really distinct point of view. And yeah, that's my suggestion.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rashard jumped in the chat with a follow-up asking if the same comes from video.
With James, did you have a response for Andres?
No, I said thanks, Andres. You killed that one. You killed that one, Aria. I have no follow-up to that.
Yeah, oh my God, videography is so important now. And there's so many videographers who are doing really cool things. Yeah, a distinct point of view, same thing. Distinct point of view. I'm wearing a Beffy shirt, and I remember for her Nordstrom collab, I don't know what videographer she worked with, but I loved the edit. And it was like this old feeling, and it was like videos collaged into videos, and like, I was like, this looks different. So you automatically are like, oh, wow, I'm interested in his point of view, his or her point of view. I'm interested in how they did this and bringing something different to the table.
And then the other thing I'll throw in is, you said it earlier on, and I was thinking it, but I didn't say it, about having your confidence in like speaking with confidence, even when you're speaking to an editor and owning your respect. It's so important that when you're trying to develop a point of view, that you got to trust yourself, even if that means trusting yourself to fail.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to get there to have a point of view if you're too scared to actually fail, if that makes sense. Like get in a safe space where you're, or be willing to put the reps in on your own. So when the lights turn on, you don't fail, one or the other. My fault, y'all.
Oh no, you good. That was a bar right there. Because I think a lot of times it's that, like, especially when you talk about creatives and speaking specifically from photo and video, and in developing a perspective, cats don't really realize that it does come from getting those reps in. It's being in the gym by yourself. It's shooting every day, and then over time you start to just develop how you see the world, and then it develops a vibe that people can feel through your images and through your work.
Or even being in the gym where everybody was watching. I thought Flavor Factory in the world was watching. I don't feel no way about it. I'm very proud of it because without Flavor Factory, there's no Amamier. There's no social status. There's no, like, those things don't exist. You have to get out there and get your reps up.
I'm gonna toss it to one of the homies. He's a regular. He's always on screen. He's always got something to say. David, what you got for us, bro?
Oh, there go my man. And I actually owe David too. I missed a call with you this week twice. My apologies, brother. So I'm coming in asking for grace.
No worries. I know you're genuine, so I know those delays are for like a legitimate reason. But first of all, you're like crazy dope. This has been fantastic. And you talked a little bit earlier about technology kind of impacting the channels of distribution. So I kind of wanted to ask how those changes have actually impacted how you approach a story. But then along with that, in a greater sense, how like this kind of new paradigm can be used to shine a light on Black creatives in ways that weren't really possible with old media.
Yeah, I mean, like, social media runs media now, which is a gift and a curse. So it's like, that's a part of my thinking. It wasn't a part of my thinking with my last job at WWD because I was just there to write stories and not really think about how they were distributed. But yeah, Complex, I have to think about, and it's something I'm starting to think about more. Well, anyways, I have to think about how I can make this long ass story appealing for someone on IG through a box. And to be quite frank, in a lot of ways, the simplest way is celebrity and like how a celebrity can connect to it. But I did something for the Black ownership story that I really liked. And I used audio. And I took like my audio conversations from my sources, and it was an idea actually that I got from the Times. But yeah, I took my audio conversations with sources and you could hear their voices. So I have to think about that a lot in social. I'm trying to think if there's any other technology I think about per se. I wish there was. Like, I wish journalism was a little bit more tech focused and innovative and figuring out how we can, ahead of the curve and figuring out how we can how we can integrate with the platforms that people are already using and really like figure out a way to tell a story. But yeah, I have to think about IG and Twitter with every story that I write. I think that answers your question. You had another question about Black creatives, but I forget what it was exactly.
Well, really quickly, actually, do you have to think about like SEO anytime you're writing a story in terms of like, I have to like use these exact keywords and stuff?
Yeah, thankfully we have this great Lariza. She's on staff. She's our SEO person and she is so helpful. So thankfully we have help with that. But yes, SEO is very important. Getting in those first few pages on Google is very important. It's not my expertise, but thankfully I have someone on staff who's like an excellent resource for it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, the second question was just about like spreading out to Black creators, but I feel like I've already taken up a lot of everybody's time, so we can just like save that for later or something.
You sure?
I mean, shit. No, I mean, no.
You got the mic right now, bro.
Get the mic, bro. Get the mic.
I'm gonna take it. No, I'm gonna take it. No, but it's like, these new forms of platforms and that new paradigm. How can we use that to shine a better light on Black creatives as a whole? because before a lot of these gatekeepers were white, and in many respects they still are white. But then there are a lot more ways to tell stories. But then not just that, there are ways like we were talking about, SEO, giving tools to maybe Black creatives to maybe SEO the hell out of their website.
Yeah.
How can we kind of do that better and distribute that new knowledge in terms of gamifying and really winning that kind of new paradigm of tech with all this other stuff.
That's a really great question. And sadly, it's like I rely on people at Complex to like help me better distribute my story. Like we have a whole BI team. And I see what does well at Complex. I'm trying to think of free resources for that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, that's a really great question. And I'm interested in it. I have been like really interested in, because some people have on staff like audience development, and that's where that stuff comes in, like really honing in on your audience and where they are and when they're clicking on things. And that's data that I would like really love to have access to. But I'm not sure about free resources, but that's a really good question. And now I'm interested.
I'll say, because I'm going to humbly name drop, but like a couple of people here know this, but like I'm a part of this program with Apple in terms of, for developers. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is how much of this knowledge is accessible to maybe people who don't look like us.
Yeah.
And it changes the game in terms of, how good your product is, but then more importantly, how accessible it is, how easy it is to be found and discovered. And yeah, these tools are just like in everyone's hands except ours. So yeah.
Maybe you should task yourself with getting them to us.
I'm trying to do that 100%.
No, Ari, I gotta say, he really does do the boy is, oh man, he's in a space that I don't truly always understand.
Yeah,
Every time I talk to him, he's enlightening me and making me like go, huh?
Right. I'm looking at some questions, but that's a great question, and I actually think it's something like media companies need to be thinking like technology companies, and I'm just so tired of media relying so much on platforms that they don't own, and it annoys me, and it just feels like there's you're at the beholden of a Facebook algorithm or an IG algorithm or a Twitter algorithm, and it's like you feel like you don't have control over how many people read your story, because it doesn't have anything to do with who's going to the .com, because ain't nobody going to the .com. So it's just, yes, media needs to figure out a way to act like technology companies, figure out a way to act like platforms, figure out a way to build their own platforms that they own the experience. So no, that's a really great question, and I'm intrigued by the topic for sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Next, we're gonna throw it to Tuck.
What's good, y'all? Appreciate y'all for this conversation. By the way, David, you awesome as a fellow STEM person. I understand them struggles, so keep going at it, bro. No talk. But question is, how do you avoid being comfortable when it comes to your storytelling? I know we all can find like our own money scheme, like, oh, this is gonna work, let me keep doing this. And especially in your space, in your role, how do you avoid being comfortable?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, yeah, I think so. It's very easy as a journalist, especially if you work for an online publication, to get into the rat race of just like your daily news stories and like your daily stories and your quick hits, because they're easy. And a lot of the times they bring more traffic than the larger stories that you work on. But I think you have to force yourself to talk about things that are top of mind for people. And I think that's what has helped me the most in my career. And it's uncomfortable taking on some of these topics because they're big topics and there's a lot of room for you to get things wrong. But for me, I'm like, well, I'm not going to grow my career through little hits, or whatever. So, I mean, this happened at WWD because we would cover everything, and I would have to really take out time to cover topics that I felt like were important, but that were sometimes controversial. but make sure that I cover them correctly. So how do I do it? How do I get used to being uncomfortable? For me, the guiding thing is like, well, when you're uncomfortable, when you feel uncomfortable about a story and it's a larger story and it's a bigger topic and you do it well, for one, you're documenting something from, and that's great, like what I talked about earlier, but also like you're getting attention. You know, people are seeing what you're good at. People are seeing what you do well, and you're learning. Like anytime you're uncomfortable, you're learning. So I just try to position it like that.
Okay.
And it would have been really easy for me to just like write a bunch of meaningless stories, because you can get into that rut very easily. But I think you have to be like, why am I here? What is my purpose here? There's not many who look like me here. So let me, I feel some type of like responsibility or onus to tell stories that other people aren't telling, even if they're harder to tell.
Yeah. Okay. I'll dig that. Thank you. Thank you. And I guess I got one more question since I still got the mic. Hey, listen, hey, if I'm going, I'm going. You feel me?
100%, bro.
100%. Gotta get the bag.
It.
From start to finish, I would say I had this question up here. Hold on. I'm just going back up. What is like your game plan when you get your story, or for instance, for you, James, when you got that product idea, your Jordan 3, from start to finish, how do you make that story continue to go? Like, what is your game plan specifically?
Mine is sometimes knowing when to hold and when to fold. Because sometimes you gotta stick to the story, and sometimes you gotta let it evolve. The best part about stories is we've been lucky. I've definitely been a beneficiary to luck, because I say all the time we get to live in our blackness, and every day our stories get told. So when one jumps out and we're in the middle of telling stories, it amplifies what we're already saying. And that happens a lot, but our stories just aren't told, so we don't get a chance to benefit, right? So now that we are telling our stories more, sometimes if something jumps out in the press, we'll look at it and then ride that part of the story a little more. Does that make sense? And we may not have had the intent on riding that part of the story, but if it jumps out, then we're gonna ride that part of the story and then circle back to bring it all together. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But James, how do you get big corporations to understand that the stories you want to tell are important?
Oh, there you go with this shit. And then you sit back and take a swig of water. Y'all see that? I hope everybody, did y'all see the finesse of what she just done that with?
Hey, look.
So, I think we're getting to a point where they're understanding the importance. And then I think the placement of some of the people, like we talked about, like white advocates, you talk about companies like Nike that got so many white faces, but some of the people at Nike who believes in our stories most is white faces. And then you get some of the right black faces that come in, and then, you know, the timing's perfect.
No, but I'm serious. You're in a meeting with a bunch of people who don't look like you, and they say, I mean, I don't know if they'll say it today, post 2020, but they say, James, we don't understand why this is important. Why are you telling the story this way? Does that happen?
Yes.
And what is your response?
Well, my response is usually just, well, I'm here for a reason. Let me do my job.
Yeah.
And with no disrespect, and there was people who sat in the meeting on a Jordan 3. I had to say that in the meeting on the Jordan 3. This ain't about to be about, this is about the stories that it need to be about. And everybody's not going to understand. Everybody's not going to understand what we're talking about right now. Yeah. But in 18 months, when it's dropped, you're going to understand the power of our stories, right? And now once it's dropped, everybody who was in that room who didn't believe in it will never say they did, right? Mm-hmm. But now what it does is it puts a burden on our team to continue to be that voice and continue to tell those stories. And but still we can't mess up, because that the second I drop the ball on it, then it gets harder for somebody else on the screen to come behind me to be able to do something similar. So
got it.
There are people who believe in it. They just, you know, there's just more of us. There's more dissenters than there are people who actually do. And even regardless of how many people come into corporate America, it's still going to be tough. Yeah. We just got to continue to push to get them out there. And once we get them out there, the support that we got on the 3, we need that level of support. Like, it doesn't work if everybody didn't show up. So yeah. appreciate to everybody for showing up and supporting it the way they did.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it. Thank y'all.
No problem, man. Just a little shout out here. We're at the 10-minute mark. So if you got any of those extra questions, go ahead and get them in. We're gonna try and end. We're gonna keep it respectful this evening. Try and end it around 8:15. So go ahead and ask those additional questions. Where's the last one I was about to scroll to? Oh, Sean David, coming your way.
I thought we were gonna be here all night. That's how y'all usually go. But go ahead.
Hey, look, if you.
Are you?
I've been on y'all Zoom, gone away, ate dinner, came back. Y'all still talking. But anyway.
Hey, look, you on the refined version of free game. It used to be the Wild West.
Now listen. When I'm running free game, it becomes a bit of the Wild West.
Oh my God. Sorry.
Trying to get Sean. Oh no, you're good.
Yeah. Hello, good night, everybody. How y'all doing?
What's good with you, Sean?
Everything is solid. So yeah, just quick question. I'll make it short since we kind of compressed for time. But yeah, I'm just curious for the most part, just about like, what are your influences or the influencers that have really, inspired or informed how you go about asking those real deep diving investigative questions. Just want to know how you're able to, form questions that allow you to arrive to the gems, when you're trying to really discover, those cutting items, when you're doing your stories.
That's a good question, bro.
That is a good question. I thought about who I would say influences me in terms of like as a writer, like a journalist. There's tons of like really good writers, but in terms of like interview style, I just did a big story. It'll be out soon, but it involves a celebrity. And yeah, it was you're trying to get gems, but you're also trying to be respectful. I'm trying not to be too specific as I can. So how do I get gems out of people? I told the young lady this earlier. It's like research. I think about like what intrigues you with a story. So like for this particular person that I spoke to, I read something and she or he worked at a particular place in college, and they were a waiter at the place as opposed to like a dancer. And I was like, well, why didn't you want to be a dancer? Did you ever consider being a dancer? And it's just like those probing questions that allow you, and also like if somebody that allow you to learn more about that person and allow you to learn more about their psyche. And if somebody answers a question and you still don't understand it or whatever, say, okay, I don't get that. Can you please explain that? And then I'm trying to think, a lot of it is just me being nosy. I'm just nosy. Like, I want to know everything, like I want to know like why you hate your dad. I want to know everything. And that kind of just comes through in how I ask questions. But I try to make it feel like it's a conversation so it doesn't feel like I'm interrogating them. So I really just try to, and I'm very complimentary, not because I'm not a complimentary person. Thankfully, I've been in a position where the people that I interview, I respect, and I've probably spent a lot of time like thinking about this person and really trying to understand why they're important and why I'm talking to them. But I am complimentary because a lot of the times I'm thankful to be speaking to them. That helps though. When you say like, oh my God, I really loved, that song you made, it really connected to me. So the subject feels like, oh, this is someone who kind of understands what I do. They respect what I do, and they're not here to like do a gotcha moment. So that's another technique. But yeah, there's so many good interviewers. There's this lady on NPR. Every time I get on panels, I forget names and it pisses me off. But it's a white lady on NPR who does really great interviews.
You gotta be talking about what's the name from Fresh Air?
Yes.
Oh gosh, what is her name?
I mean, I can Google it.
I'm looking forward to right
Terry
now.
Gross. Terry Gross.
Yes.
Her name is Terry Gross.
Thank you
Terry
so
Gross
much.
from Fresh Air. She gives the most amazing interviews.
Yes. Terry Gross from Fresh Air. And she like has this, I mean, this is probably natural, but she has a very melodic and calming voice. So you feel like you're kind of being lulled into answering a question. There's all types of techniques. My technique is to act like we're just having a conversation. I'm not a journalist. I'm just, but I am a journalist. The recorder's right there. But let's just have a conversation. And if you're not comfortable with something, like even with this most recent interview, I asked a question and the person ended up being like, can we replace that question? Because I know if that answer goes into the story, that's all the story is going to be about. And I'm like, you know what? I respect it. We don't have to do that question. So yeah, I just try to keep it like conversational, respectful, complimentary, all that.
For sure. You about to say something, Jay?
Nope. I was about to make a joke, but I'm gonna let her live. 4 minutes left. I'm gonna say my
Somebody
joke.
asked a good question about any good resources that'll help you. You got read. Like read stories, go on the Times Magazine. I'm trying to get in people's questions because I want to be helpful. Like New York Magazine, like all these big, Complex, all these big, publications that do really great long form pieces. Read it.
I got a interrupting. Sorry for interrupting you. I got a good question. What happens if all of you great storyteller, writers, journalists start owning your content via social? Because we all know, to your point, the .com, my quote was, if .com doesn't matter, what happens if journalism goes vertical?
I mean, I think that is already the direction that things are going, to be honest. And I see it all the time. I've seen there's an advice columnist who worked for The Cut, who said she's leaving to go to Substack, which is like a newsletter platform that people subscribe to read it. I see people with Patreons. I see people on OnlyFans teaching their expertise about fashion, not even doing OnlyFans, things that we usually associate with OnlyFans. I've even thought about it. I'm like, I should be selling my expertise in some way. I should be teaching in some way over my own platform or whatever. Like, that is the future of it. And like, I was listening to this podcast, and it's like if you want to see video of the podcast, you become a Patreon member, or you can just hear it audio, and that's the future of it. And I think like people just have to think about developing their voice and what do I bring to the table, and maybe like what would people pay for to hear from me. But that is the future. I think all writers should be thinking about that.
No, it's interesting because Kev on our team just sent me a New York Times article saying why we're freaking out about Substack.
Yes.
Right? Like just that idea there, as minutes before you said it, it kind of informed my question.
Yeah.
I think just like the idea of what you said about just vertical and owning your own ideas, and how does that, what's the place of the people, places, or businesses to bring a bunch of ideas together to put them out in the world, and how can we force those platforms to be better and more informed, if that makes sense?
I mean,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I think, like I said before, and this is something, and I don't know who's on this call, so I'm just talking, but if media companies don't start thinking about how they own their own content and not relying on advertisers and not relying on IG and not relying on Facebook, the industry is dead in the motherfucking water. Excuse my French. But it's just it every time it shocks me that nobody's thinking about how to go vertical and how to not always rely on advertisers and how to be beholden to somebody else's budget all the time, and why we're not fostering really deep-seated relationships with our readers so they want to pay for the content that we have, as opposed to being in these meetings with these big brands that don't fucking get it and trying to tell them why they should get it and why they should give us the money to tell this story. Is
100%. You hit spot on what I was trying to get. I mean, at the end of the day, anybody who's doing anything good, there has to be an added value that you bring that makes people want to work with you.
Yeah.
So you're beholden to no one.
Yeah, exactly. In some capacity. I know that advertising will always be a part of media, but we have to think about the relationship that we're building with the reader and what can we offer them that they can pay for. Like I think of the Nike sneakers app and I think of like Spotify and I think of like these are apps that offer utility. Like you have to get on sneakers to get the fucking sneaker, or you have to get on Spotify to hear your music, or Apple Music or whatever. And I'm like, media needs to be thinking about that. How are you offering utility to the reader so that they are embedded, you are embedded in their everyday life? Like we can't play this traffic game, but for so long, like it's not sustainable. Like there's already journalists who are saying like, fuck this, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I can't play this traffic game. Like we need some innovation. So yeah.
100%. I was about to ask you, is there any closing thoughts? But I think you hit it for me already.
I love stories. I wish I could hear more from people. Like, are there any other questions? Because people send me so many messages and I never have time.
Well, we could keep the session open. Is there anyone who has any meaningful questions? Like if you're hitting Aria up on DM or you got questions, please ask them now, because we'll keep the session open to make sure.
Well, this is a good topic that we could talk about before we get off or whatever, because I get a lot of young brands reaching out to me saying, can we get coverage on Complex? And you be good, because we talked about this before. We talked about this like with like what brands like appeal to you, what makes someone like appeal to me. And I'll be honest, if you're already asking me to get coverage on Complex, you're probably not. I'm trying to be appropriate and above the board.
You don't need to.
But yeah, you're probably, I don't know who's in this call, but you're probably not going to. Why are you so concerned with getting on Complex? I know that it means something, and I know that like, but a lot of the times the brands that ask this, I look at the brand, I'm like, you're in no way, shape, or form ready to be covered on Complex.
Yes.
Like, so I'm curious from you, especially from your perspective, and especially now, and especially when we're not going to shows or trade shows, like what moves a mark for you with storytelling? Like, what's maybe the last brand their story has really compelled you?
For me?
Yeah, for you, like what to carry in your stores.
I'm anybody who's coming, like, once again, at this point, it's two things for us. It's people who have established themselves at a really, really, really high level, right? And we're in fashion, so I'm not going to pretend that there's not anchor fashion houses that are meaningful to our business.
Yeah.
In sneakers, fashion, and luxury. So it's the anchors, and then it's everybody that's new. It's everybody who's coming in with integrity and wanting to build it for the right reasons. And you said it. I sat in on, I think, one or two Clubhouse sessions. in one, I got like lightly nauseated with, because all they talked about was how to get on and just sell shit to people for the sake of selling it. Yeah. No one cared anything about the brand, the integrity of the brand, the connection to the community or the consumer, or what that was about. They're just, if you're just getting in as a money grab, it never works. Like so when kids hit us up on DM and they're like, yo, yeah, you should give us a shot. We just hit up Nordstrom's and Neiman's and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no thanks, right? Yeah. But when you see the kid that's doing something really interesting for the right reasons, and they're trying to build something like with their heart in it, and those are the kids that we want to work with, because like, at least in that moment, it's pure, right? And the game has a way of tainting everyone, right? But the people who are most successful, like, yo, Supreme was able to do what they done largely from a brand perspective, because they kept it so pure for so long, right? Like, that's what matters most. So for me, I'm looking for that integrity, and I'm looking for people who want to be there for the long haul. Like those are the brands, and the people that we want to work with.
I always want to point out some brand, and we're going to have a story coming out about them, but there's this gentleman in LA that has this platform called No Free Coffee. And one of my colleagues has just interviewed him and wrote about it. But I love it because it's like, it's based off of like a retail concept from Japan or whatever, but he basically serves coffee. He does pop-ups in LA, and it's from like this, like it's outdoor, so it's COVID friendly, and they serve the coffee from this like little window, so it's a special experience. And then he just happens to sell like really good clothes, and I love it because it's like it's community building. And like I feel, and that's what Supreme was. I mean, they weren't trying to be that, but it just was like, it was community building. It was, you know, certain people who were downtown, and yeah, it's community building. And I feel like everybody needs to be thinking about that, brands, publications, whatever. And then there's this brand called Barriers that's popping in New York, and he does really cool things. And he just had a pop-up, and he did a pop-up in Atlanta where he like paid homage to the Shirt Kings and another graffiti artist. And I just love to see things like that. And yeah, so brands who are reaching out to me, it's like, first, usually if your story is really compelling, I've seen it. Like if your story is really compelling, you're already on our radar. So instead of focusing on being on focus on building your community. You know, focus on who you're trying to speak to, who you want to purchase your product. And if you don't have a community and people aren't buying your stuff, then 9 times out of 10, and you think Complex is going to help that, it's not. Like, just because you're on Complex does not mean that people are going to go buy your stuff. The product has to be good. There has to be, a message, a community, something meaningful. So I wanted to say that because I know so many people DM me like, hey, Aria, this is my brand. Hey, Aria, this is my brand. And I don't knock it, because do that. You're supposed to do that. But I think people need to like prioritize exactly. You said focus on doing the work. Correct.
Yes. And like I said, and I started leaning towards it in the beginning of it when we start talking about the responsibility of media. The responsibility of media is not fueling hype culture. Yo, good people fuel themselves. Like the community fuels everything.
Yeah.
Right. And nothing can happen without everybody participating. And if we take control over the things we buy and our why, things automatically get better. Right.
Yeah.
Then if I go on my political shit, it's the same reason how we can vote people in or vote people out. Or I give you a better one. Hold our 40 some million votes hostage until somebody give us what we want.
Yeah. But don't you think you benefited from hype culture?
Yeah, kinda. I would say I would say it this way. Yo, Aria, at 5 stores, it was hard as hell. Right? At 8, it was hard. But for me, man, once I'm in it, you got to remember, I'm going back to the corner if this don't work. Not today. I'm not, right? Today I'm not going back to the corner. Right?
I was like, what?
No, today I'm not going back to the corner. But my mindset was always, if this don't work, I'm going back to the corner. Yeah. And this ain't been no easy ride. Like, I've been, up until 5 years ago, I was a team of 1. It was us and store managers. So this shit ain't necessarily been sweet. So no, we were afforded an opportunity from hype culture, but only in the last 5-6 years have we had the opportunity to stretch our legs and get any of our narrative and point of view out there. And only in the last 2 to 3 years have we seen any real level of support on the things that are meaningful to us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Some of the beneficiaries of hype culture, don't make me start calling people out, because I will be. Right?
But how do we you do this is kind of because there's this whole conversation about accessibility in streetwear and with the sneaker industry. And it's like, how do you grapple with that? Because there's an argument that people things are too expensive, or some people don't even have a chance to get them because of bots. And obviously we're working in an industry, particularly you, where you sell limited numbers of product. And that is kind of a good strategy that makes the product desirable, along with it being looking good. So how do you approach and this is one way that you approach it, by like making yourself accessible to people.
Yeah.
So maybe they can't afford a Dior jacket. Do you sell Dior? What you sell?
Yeah, I sell
Yeah,
Dior.
Dior jacket, but they can have a conversation with you. But like, yeah, how do you grapple with that?
The Dior jacket's aspirational.
Yeah.
I'm a part of the work to help you get to the Dior jacket.
Got it. Yes,
since
I love that.
Since you can't afford the Dior jacket, I'm gonna give you this game. If you
Yes.
put this game to work, you're gonna have much. The Dior jacket is a subset of the work. The Dior jacket is not the trophy. You're the trophy. You just happen to be throwing around the Dior jacket, right? People get it all messed up. The Dior jacket is the goal for too many people. The community we're building is much bigger than anything that we sell. To be without no disrespect to any of my brand partners, and I've said it all, retail's additive to me at this point, right?
What you mean by that?
Retail powers the machine that allows us to do community. Got it. Right. So for me now, it's about, yes, I love experience. I still love retail, right? Yeah. I still am very much connected to, I see shit that I love every day, but now it's about like you said, yeah, shit's supposed to be limited. Like, yo, demand planning said if everybody in the world could get every item they want, nobody would want nothing, right? That's counter to how humans work. So we can't just start that either. This can't be like kumbaya, everybody gets everything. I'm not into participation trophies either, right? We all got a part to play, right? And if, to your earlier point, if you do the work, you'll get the trophy.
I love that. I feel like, I love that. Where you were basically saying, like, I'm teaching, because you're giving free game. Like, I'm teaching you like the journey to get to the Dior jacket, but it's not about the Dior jacket, it's about the journey. And like, that's so meaningful. And I do feel like, especially younger generations, because I think about this a lot, and I think about like what brands actually care about who gets their product, or what brands care about how they, I like that pipeline. That's all I'm saying. I like.
Well, here's something everybody got to remember. Brands don't care about anybody.
Yes.
People do.
Yeah.
People at the brands. No, brands aren't physical beings, right? Mm-hmm. People run brands. Yeah. So it's about the culture and the community of people who run the brands and what they care about and why, right? And going back to your earlier question, the reason why most people work with me is because there are good people in the world. There are people who want to, and my approach to them is saying, listen, I don't want you to make less money, right? Everybody got a bottom line, right? Yeah. I don't want you to make less money. I don't want you to give us nothing, right? But in the process of us making money, if we can help people who don't have opportunities, why aren't we going to do it?
Right.
Give me a good reason why.
Yeah.
And the fact that they can't give me a good reason why is how we get to yes in a lot of times. And then if I can't win that way, I just beat the fucking table.
Okay. No, that's great. I love that.
No, I mean, you see now you starting to, y'all seen her just journalist me, right? I'm glad everybody on the call just watched the journalist come right out of her. She couldn't even help it. But and she got the response. I wasn't fucking thinking. I just said it. If that was some other journalist for some other magazine, I would have just said, well, Aria, actually, I think that.
How do you feel like media's treated you? And this will be my last question.
Media's been fair to me.
Okay, good.
Media's been, but a lot of it, I think the tone was set. And I don't put no fuckery out there. I don't. If you say something about me, it's true, right? Like I'm going to put out there exactly who I am. I'm not going to give you the ability to say it. I'm gonna already say it. I'm a felon. I come from the bottom. I come from the projects. What else you got for me? Now I'm kicking the door in, and once I kick it in, a bunch of project kids that's trying to win is going to run in. Yeah. But they're going to be educated and equipped to win.
Right.
That's it. What you gonna report? I'm not giving you nothing else. Not you. I'm not giving the world nothing else to report on. That's the narrative. That's all they gonna get.
Yes, controlling your narrative. That's a good thing to and when the gentleman asked about like being a photographer or what stands out, and even myself, like if you don't offer a narrative, people are going to provide one for you or about you. And that's one of the reasons. Not actually, it's not, but I think it has helped. Like one of the reasons why I've gotten vocal on IG stories, because I think people need to know like what you represent and what you know and what you believe in or what irritates you. Because most of the times I'm talking about what irritates me, but yeah, like what irritates you or whatever. And that's it. We're talking about storytelling, and I think like know what story you want to tell about yourself.
Yeah, and I think people, I'm trying to get your social media up right now, and just so I can get it, because your stories, it enlightened me. Like, yo, if y'all want to laugh, when Aria getting her bag and her stories, like, yo, it's incredible. But you're right. One of my homies, Phil McCartney, not the Beatle, he always say to me, when people don't know where you stand,
yes,
you give them the ability to make shit up in their mind, right? And if you don't stand on the right side, then people gonna put you on the other side, right? So like, yo, say where you at. Let us all know where you stand at. At least we know what we're dealing with.
Right. No, for sure. For sure. It took me a while to get to a place where I was comfortable with doing that, because I always felt like, and I still like balance. Like but whatever. I'm like, this is who I am. This is my voice. These are things that I'm thinking about. Like, if you don't like it, don't read my story. If you do like it, great. But it's been great at engaging. And I think people getting to know me beyond the byline and beyond like the sometimes serious topics that I write about. So yeah, use your voice, figure out who you are and what stories you're trying to tell. And as James always says, your why, which is really like your story.
Yeah. And get comfortable with it too, yo. Like, cause don't feel like, and this is about to be my preach moment. Don't feel like your social media gotta be like what you think people want to see or your happy shit. Like let it be your why. Be comfortable curating your platform and being the version of you that you see yourself being, not the version of you that fits in with the 900 billion other social media platforms that are out there, because they're not that interesting, by the way, right? They're just the same fuck boy or fuck girl that's posting the same fuckery that everybody else is posting. Sorry for being too honest with everybody there. Sorry.
I just saw Deb. Hi, Deb. Deb does social for Complex. Our social team in general is really strong. And I have a suggestion to people who are interested in media: learn how to do social. Learn how to do social, because that's kind of something that's never going to go away, and it's very important. And Deb's always really great at, because the Complex comments on the main IG page can be crazy, and Deb checks them and it's hilarious. But like social is a part of storytelling. And like I had a friend who I believe is on this, who was like, do you know someone who can do social for this? That's like, people are always looking for people who know how to do social. So yeah, that's another avenue into like media and storytelling that I feel is ripe for growth, and it's going to continue to grow.
Make sure y'all follow Aria. If you don't already, it's one of those things that like, yo, there's not, I like to believe that, not I like to believe it's true. I can't follow anybody who do fuckery. And if so, I just mute you because I don't want to look rude for them following you. So if I follow somebody and you see them post a fuckery, know that they're muted. But curate the people that you follow, because that's the information. Aria said it earlier, and it was super. We all know it. Most of us get our news from social media.
Yeah.
And if you follow bullshit, you getting bullshit.
Yeah. But I talk about a lot of bullshit too. Like, so don't.
But no, it's funny though, yo. Like
talk about a lot of stuff that don't matter.
Yo, listen. J-Lo's romantic life is my.
But you know what that bothers me, and that's why that's the point of the show. It's inauthentic storytelling.
Yo, but
that's why it bothers me.
I would have never grasped it on how inauthentic her dating life is if you would have never pointed it out to me. So that's valuable to me, right? Because it's a narrative that I wouldn't have picked up on, right? But if youngins is checking that out, you starting to see that dating is actually a game. Or they really dating for love, or they just dating up. So there's value in that. So somebody Tamika just said it.
Yes.
J-Lo dating life is a marketing rollout. 100%. That's a bar. And how many others are following that bar and they ain't dating for love? It's a marketing rollout, right? There's a PR person curating her love life.
Yes. Yes.
We don't hate you, J-Lo. We just saying it's
not at all.
It's all love. It's all love.
Respect.
Yeah.
Finessing.
Yo, so if no one has anything else, Aria, we gotta do this a little more often. Next time I won't be scared to ask. I backdoored her on this one.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can always ask. I can always say no, but you can always ask. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't really like to talk much. I'm used to being on the other end of it. As you can see, I started to ask you questions. That's what I feel most comfortable doing. But it's like, it is what it is. Like, I have been at it for a while. I have opinions and things to say and expertise that I've gathered. So like you said, like you have to, if you have to create a narrative for yourself. So this is me creating a narrative for myself. I don't even want to tell people to reach out to me because I know I'm probably not going to respond, because maybe I will, but I just don't. I get so many emails. I just don't have the time. And if I respond to every email I get, yes, but maybe I will. So it just depends on how I'm feeling a certain day. So yeah, if y'all have any other questions, let me know. I do want to be as helpful as I can because I know everyone needs help. Everyone needs a helping hand, and this industry is crazy. So that's all.
Somebody gave a recommendation. They said you should do more IG live.
You think? I don't know. I like my IG stories medium. It's like, it's just me and my text and my writing. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But for now, this was really comfortable. I wasn't looking at how many people are on. I don't know who's on. I'm just looking at the chats and a few people that I know who thank you y'all for coming. I never think like, whatever, I'm gonna stop talking. But thank you, James. It was a great conversation.
No, I hate that. I know I seen when you got comfortable. It was like at like the 7:45 mark. I'm like, okay, now we
was that late?
now we hit some. It was like once you settled in, I was like, yeah, this thing need to go longer.
Yeah.
But no, it was a pleasure, and thank you. I appreciate you. You know, on a work side and on a personal side, we appreciate you.
Yes, I can't wait to see what more stories you all have to tell.
It's gonna get.
I want to know the videographers who did the AJ3. It was just so beautiful.
Oh no, we put it out there. That's the Turner brothers.
I know, but y'all should. I want to speak to them. I want you to talk.
Oh
to them.
yes, Julian is, man. All I'm gonna say is, see, now you queuing me up right now, Aria.
Yeah, you got to.
Because what we're about to do next is about to get so fucking fun. Because it's just having, when you have people that you don't need to explain our culture to, because like when you're working with Black creatives who grew up in the same space that you grew up in, and you just start talking about the experiences of growing up in Blackness and going through the things that we go through, I could go in and brief a story and say like, yo, we talking about this summertime day, first day of summer, and the feeling was this. You ain't got AC, and the fly hit your face, and you waking up, and your mom pop in the room. And I'm giving y'all too much right now. If Mark is on the story, if Mark is on the call, he probably like, shut up. But the stories that we're going to continue to tell is just going to be about our experiences and the things that we live through every day. But I think everybody's going to really enjoy the nostalgia of the next story that comes out.
I love it.
You doing the journalism thing to me again.
Sorry, but I'm excited. I love seeing those types of stories. It makes the product feel a little bit more relatable, and I love it.
Yeah, it's gonna get, this one is gonna be like, oh shit, I didn't see. You seen it coming because we talked about it, but I don't think nobody's listening. We talked about it a lot, and when it comes, everybody gonna be like, damn, how did we not see that? If that makes sense. It's gonna get fun. And I can't give that. I can't say. You see Dave like,
Poor Dave. He gotta be he's the muzzle.
Dave about to mute me over his stream.
I had my hand on the mute button, Jay.
I just looked at the phone. Mark and Kev is threatening me on the phone. I see the red emoji faces. No, man, I quit now. I quit. I'm really gone. Aria, thank you. Everybody, thank y'all for investing.
Yes, thank everybody for watching.
Everybody for investing the time. This was as good as I wanted it.